Hey everyone, my name is Ivis. I'm a senior product expert here at ZoomCharts, and I'm going to be one of the guys who is going to be going through the reports today, right? There no needs to be for a longer explanation. Federico, you want to take?
Hi, yeah, sure. I'm Federico Pastor, a tech lead at Iberus, a Spanish company, and the founder of FP20 Analytics Challenges Group. That's it.
All right, it goes to you, Abu.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I am Abubakar Alvi. I am an independent Power BI consultant and trainer. I've been using Power BI for about 7 years. And today I am one of the judges, and it's a pleasure to be on this webinar. Thank you.
Simple and efficient. All right, guys. So what are we really here all about, right? So the agenda for today is quite simple. We have closed on the submission for the challenge itself, right? So we have evaluated all the reports, and we have a top 5, which is something that we're going to be going through today. We're going to go through each of those reports. We're going to give our feedback from our experience and our opinion. One thing I always try to emphasize and reiterate is, if you see something and you think we're kind of going harsh on you, don't take this personally. It's better you hear it from us and you learn from these things rather than you create your first report. And trust me, there's always going to be some criticism. It doesn't matter what you do, what you create. There's going to be people saying it doesn't look good, it doesn't feel right. That's fine. What you do with that information is just take it in, see, maybe I can adapt it for a different audience a little bit better. So that's all fine. We're going to go through these reports, talk about things we like, talk about things we think could be improved, and talk about things, for example, certain cases where you have to be very careful when you're using something. So all of those things. We, of course, going to be answering any of your questions. So if you do have any questions during the meantime, make sure you post them in the Q&A section of the chat. The reason why I'm emphasizing on the Q&A section of the chat is because it's very easy to miss questions in just regular chat, right? I can easily just scroll over them. So if you post it in the Q&A section, it's a lot easier for us to afterwards go through them and make sure we answer them. If there's a question we unfortunately are not able to answer straight away, or if we just don't have enough time to answer all of them, we're going to be able to afterwards reach out to you. And if you have any other questions, you can always reach out to our team by sending emails at webinars@zoomcharts.com. So that's all fine. All right. Other than that, what else? Before we go into the top 5, one of the things I wanted to quickly reiterate again is the challenge itself, right? So for those of you who are new, and I saw from the comments already that some of you haven't really started to participate in the challenges, and that's fine, trust me. From my experience, I can tell you, I've been in the game for a little bit over 6 years, and I didn't have enough courage to participate for over 2 years. So that's fine. I had created reports, but I never submitted a report, right? So that was my mistake, I would say. I wanted to learn, but I was very afraid of the judgment, which is something I've grown to kind of get used to right now. But it's hard in the beginning. And I think Abu can agree with me. I think Federico also had the same experience at the very beginning when you kind of feel, I don't think it's quite ready, right? I need to improve. I need to have better visuals, better design and everything. You have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
At the same time, anyone that knows me knows that I am where I am because my participation in tons of challenges. So I build my skills and my know-how participating in challenges. And today I have a job. It pays me well, and I have some good connection in LinkedIn about what I do. That's the reason I do the challenges, and that's the reason why I tell you there is nothing wrong with your first report is no good. That nobody's going to criticize you, and you shouldn't care anyway because you are learning, practicing, sharing with the community, and opening your network. So there is no excuse not to.
Exactly. All right.
Just to add, I was just to add to what Federico said, and I think I totally agree with Federico, and Federico knows that I call him, the king of data challenges, because he is really, the king of data challenges, because the number of challenges that he has participated in just, tells his love for this thing. And with him running this FP20, anybody who participates, he or she is going to get the same feeling of encouragement and the same the hesitancy that people have of submitting something, they would not really feel hesitant once they submit it, once, and then they are going to, feel it's going to be, something that they are eagerly waiting. Okay, when is the next challenge coming? So I totally agree with what Federico said, that it is really important to just participate, learn from this, and there is no better way of learning a Power BI or even any other data visualization tool than just participating in these challenges.
Absolutely. All right, so for the challenges itself, so we have them every single month. The next one is going to start also in actually a few days. But the main idea about these challenges is we give you a data set, we tell you a little bit of a brief, kind of what the data set is all about, and some of the questions we want you to answer. Now, one thing we emphasize on every single time, and Federico can encourage me on this as well, if you have any ideas on how you can enhance the data set, you can do that. If you have any additional information, if you decide that, oh, actually there's, for example, let's say in this example, we had different descriptions of the copy, almost the same, but not really, but different descriptions of coffee, right? If you can enhance that information with something else, or say, oh, I could actually use this to create some sort of groups based on description, you go ahead and do that. This is a playground for you. You try out different skills, you see what other people are doing, you get that information and you try out. And if you fail, well, it's okay. It's okay to fail as well, as long as you just learn something from it, right? That's the main thing. But yeah, if you have anything like that, we had a challenge, for example, where we had different country names, but we didn't have the longitude and longitude for it. Okay, you find a longitude and longitude. That's fine. In other cases, we had just, we specifically did it on purpose as well. We just had, let's say, location 1, location 2, location 3, which is okay. But if you think about a report perspective, it's not really interesting to showcase, for example, just a bar graph showing location 1, 2, 3, right? So what you could do is just say, okay, location 1 is going to be US. Location 2 is going to be, I don't know, South Africa. Your location 3 is going to be Pakistan, or whatever. You go around, you create the data sets that help you to tell the story in a more interesting manner, right? Don't be afraid to always kind of play around with these.
And believe me, every data set can be made twice the big, enhancing if you want to. You have sales, and you have sale, middle sale, low sale. You can create a column with this high, middle, low. You got time of people entering to work. You have now shift. You have the morning, the afternoon, late evening, or evening and night. So all this come into your mind. You need to think about, okay, I got this here. I can do this here and create a column with that. You are enhancing and presenting better, because now you don't have to give me all the time, for example, of people coming to work. You are telling me what people coming to work in the morning, what people coming to work in the afternoon, and so on. So please do so. Another thing, the questions that we put in the challenge, they don't need to be replied as a whole, all of them. Okay, you might decide just to go for 5 or 6 of the question, and if you have any other question in your head that you think is important, just bring it up.
Yeah.
That guides you to create your report. It's not 100% compulsory. You can work it out. Sorry, AB.
No, it's I was going there as well. So that's the reason why it says should, right? Not must. This is basically a guide for you to give some ideas on what you can analyze in the report. If you think about anything else, if you have any other ideas, go ahead, create an interesting report, because at the end of the day, you're submitting your report, right? You don't want to submit something you feel like, don't really kind of feel good about it, right? So if you want to enhance it with something else, go ahead and do that. But yeah, we do have these challenges every single month. You have a data set already prepared for you. You can always, one thing I can't emphasize enough is if you go, for example, also on FP20 page, you can find these. Also here, for example, we have different challenges. If you go for last month, you can quickly open it up and you can see that there's actually going to be a gallery with all the submissions from the previous challenge. So you can look at the reports, you can open up every single one of them and play around with them. If you find one particularly interesting, let's say, oh, I like this feature that the user has created, I want to understand how he did it. The one reason why we ask for your LinkedIn, for example, is we always reference you as the author. so that the community can reach out to you if you want to. The other thing you can do here is you can download the PBX file, and you can physically take a look at the setup of the visual. You can see what data is being used, how he modified the data, for example, what DEX measures are being used. You get all that information. Trust me, when I started off, if I would have this, I would be blessed, but I didn't. So it was trial and error. Most of the time we were looking at screenshots, and it could be done like that, but it could have been also one of the 60 other options out there. So use your resources, and if you have any questions, just reach out. The most important thing is don't be afraid to communicate. Because the worst thing that can happen is, for example, if you reach out to one of the authors asking about a specific thing that he did and he doesn't reply, well, he doesn't reply. You're still at the same point, right? You didn't lose anything. Yeah. Besides maybe the 2 or 3 minutes whilst compiling a message. That's about it. All right, enough about that. Make sure you participate in the next challenge for those of you who haven't. And I think we can start off with the first report. You guys ready?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, so let me bring it to the screen. There we go. So the first submission that has gotten into the top file belongs to Giancarlo Ramos de Rosas. So congratulations to you. And let's take a look at the report and see what other thing or what has been done about the data and what interesting things that they created. And for this one, Federico, I'll give the floor to you.
Okay, thank you.
To start off.
Let me check. Okay, I'm going to start with the, I forgot the name again, the chart at the bottom, right?
Scatter plot, yeah.
Scatter plot. I don't use it very frequently myself. As I'm going to be very honest, I don't read it very well myself. I went through it for a few minutes, and I know now what they're representing, but for me, it's a confusing. For me, it might be that your client, your user, okay, have the know-how how to read that visual. I do believe that perhaps myself will have choose a different method of visualize that data. There is no it is wrong. It is that I will have preferred a different chart. Okay, it still is well presented. It have the trending line going up in prices, averages. So that I like that. I like the donut chart. We know that, and we hear a lot about complaining on LinkedIn about, hey, don't use a pie chart or a donut chart. The difference with ZoomCharts is that they have the property of drill down. You can isolate what you shoot. Okay, and it's gonna give you, if you play with the donut, maybe, okay, you can isolate information. It's gonna give you my information. It keep breaking. Okay, so it gives you more information, making something that we believe not to be of good use, something that I like to use, actually. So that is fantastic. I like the little note at the top right. Okay, you got the Cata Moquita, is the most expensive coffee. And then you have some more information about the aroma and the mouthfeel is some text information, some information that I can consume quickly because I can read it and I understand what it means. So well done on that. And then we have a trend line or a line chart with years and month that you can zoom in and zoom out. So I like the page, well built. It has the color, it has good alignment. It has three pages at the top, or 3 buttons at the top that take you to different pages. The only thing that I did, can you go back? Sorry, Iris.
Yeah, sure.
Apologies. If you go to the year filter and click for a year, what is going to happen? That. Okay, all the beauty is gone. All this super fancy line chart that you have there, okay, is gone. So that's something to remember, guys. In general, if you are using the year or a month visual, you don't put a filter with the month or the year because it will annul, it will cancel, okay, the report. So that's a good little tip for you to take into into account, okay? And the same happened with the country, because you got country at the bottom in the donut. Basically, now you have given me just one massive slice of the donut, okay? So remember, if you have in a visual a country or year or month, try to avoid those filters, or you use the filter. Remember to use the edit interactions when you can cancel, okay, what visual is affecting which one. Okay, can you go to another page quickly?
Of course.
Thank you. Again, a lot of people ask me about the write-up. How do we call this chart? The write-up.
Word cloud.
The word cloud about Federico. How do we do some sentiment analysis? And we don't have. At least you have a premium Power BI capacity or something like that. You can do a proper sentiment analysis. So the only thing, and I suggested, was to use this visual. At least it give me some information. Okay, and I'm happy that a lot of people use it, because we didn't have nothing else to use it. So even when it's a visual that I don't like it, okay, I'm gonna congratulate everyone using it, because we don't have nothing else. That's what it is, and I need to put something about that. Okay, so well done on that. Again, well built. There is a space between the visuals. You have click on aroma, and you got like a little
aroma, yep.
Yeah, you got a little, I don't know if they're a button or a field parameter. Not sure, but that is nice too. And let's go to roster.
Yeah, we're here.
I like the, what is the bottom one about it? Let me go here myself. Okay, that is probably the average. Yeah. I like this, which I kind of remember me of a, how do you call the Gulf pyramid, the distribution. Okay, because we have the averages, and then you can see it going up, inclined to the left. Okay, so it's telling me that there is more, a number of coffee have lesser averages, and then turn to the right. So a good report, well built, uncomplicated, couple of little things that I point out, but nothing else. I think it's really, really good. Well done, and finger crossed. That is for me, Amy.
All right. From my side would be just few comments. So one of the things that Federico already mentioned is you have to be cautious, and we are going to be telling you this every single time. Don't worry about it, because it's going to happen every single time. Play around with your slicers. If you add any slicers to the report page, make sure you play around with them and double check so you don't create these sort of scenarios where something gets fully cut off or you end up with just a single slice, because it doesn't really help you to tell the story afterwards, right? It sort of limits you. One of the good things about this is that this is actually something that we specifically developed for the donut chart recently, and this is going to be a new feature where if you end up with a situation like this where you just have a single slice, the donut chart is automatically going to drill down to the second level. So you're basically going to have a capability to split it down by a subcategory. But, you know, it's not a fail-safe mechanism. It's better if you don't have it. But to kind of intermediate, we're also trying to do it from our side. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I noticed this just afterwards when I try to focus on the data itself. If I hover over one of the months, in the tooltip you can see that the value is, for example, 7.76, right? But if you look at the value axis itself, it goes into the hundreds. So which kind of made me raise an eyebrow, like something's not right here. So the reason for that is I looked at the underlying data set itself and the report itself in this case. And this is the reason why you always have to double check your work before you submit it, right, guys? In this case, the author was playing around with assigning different values to different axes and forgot to reassign it back to the primary axis. So it's actually scaling on a secondary axis, which is currently not even visible. But since the primary axis is not disabled, you have numbers just going from 0 to an infinite, basically. So if I would rescale this, the chart would just work a little bit better, because right now it's confusing. If I look at the values, it's 450, right? But it's 12.2 like suddenly. But again, one of the things I'm reiterating once again is these fixes take you a minute, right? It's not something you have to spend hours upon. This is why it's not a game breaker. This is not a real life scenario where you're giving this to your CEOs, right? We're here to give you feedback, honest feedback that you can learn from. And this is one of the things you have to just be careful about. What else? If I go to the brand pages, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk about with you guys as well. If you come to this sort of practice, right? Like, for example, one of the things that you're going to notice here is that these two pages are basically exactly the same in design. The only thing that changes is either it's brand or it's roasters. So if you have a situation like this, my recommendation is do not split it into two separate pages. Just create a tab system for the one page that you already have. The reason for this is because when I'm moving completely to a different page, I'm refreshing all the cards, which is completely unnecessary. The top menu is not changing based on whether you're on one page or the other. So by creating a tab system, you would keep the top intact completely and just change the contents below. That is the only thing that would affect, and it would just look a lot nicer and feel a little bit better for the end user. But other than that, I think it's a good work. The last comment that I noticed when it comes to map, try to avoid this. It's not a big deal, but try to avoid having the center of the cluster the same color as you have everything around it, because it just kind of blends in. Yeah. You're diminishing the fact that there are slices in the donut, especially for smaller ones, right? It just looks like a blob with some cutouts. That's it. So either change it to a neutral color or change it into something that you can notice, but do not leave the same color for the center of the node and the same for the slices. Make a little bit of distinguishment between them. And for the word cloud, one thing I noticed here is you can exclude words. And you should have done that for those words which are completely unnecessary, like and, for example. That's not really going to help you to define a coffee, right? So that's one of the things. And when it comes to word cloud, one of the suggestions I personally have from the work that I've been doing is have something maybe like a combo chart right next to it, or even a table that tells you the number of times it has been used. It just helps the user to basically have a scale in mind, right? So for example, we can see that acidity has been used the most, but I have to hover over every single one of them to kind of compare them and understand what's the minimum, what's the maximum. So that's one of the few things that I noticed about this one. But other than that, it's a great report. It's easy to use. It's not super complex. So congratulations. And Abu, any comments on this one?
I think most of the comments you've already given, you and Federico, and I think overall the report is very neat, clean. It's easy to use, and again it answers most of the questions that were asked in the challenge. So well done. I don't know if this is the first one or this participant has participated in some of the other challenges, but looking at the quality, it shows that whatever the journey has been, the current level is very good. And just the few things that we have kind of highlighted here, if you keep those things in mind and keep all the other best practices that are already there, I think this could be a much better. One of the reports for the next challenges could be a much better one. So well done.
All right, let's move on to the next one. So let me bring that up. So the next one is gonna be a submission from Jason Martin Tupas. So congratulations into getting the top 5. And let's open it up and take a closer look at it. And for this one, Abu, I'll give the floor to you to give the initial comments.
Okay, so the first thing that you actually notice on this report is the color theme. So I really like the color theme because coffee, all of us know that it is a shade of brown. So this shade of brown is there. And if I start the review from the top left, so you see these bars here. So if you can just put your mouse on this color palette bar there, so you can see the very intelligent use of the report tip of the tool tip. So the 6 different colors are there. So these are consistently used throughout the report, and then each of the colors, you have this description in the tooltip that actually says that, okay, what is the type of roast? What is this color, corresponding to? And then there are a few important, what you can say is metrics associated with each of these. So I really, like this one. So this is, something very, very innovative, and something that shows that a lot of thought process has gone into designing this report. Other than that, if you go to the right, then on the top right, you have the two different icons. So the analysis has been broken down into the ratings and prices, and the other part is the first part is just on the brands, reviews, and the roster. So it's a very logical kind of segregation that you should have for any report. Like if you're talking about prices, you take it to another page and just focus on the prices. Then the cards on the top are really neatly designed. Again, you have not only the numbers but also the segregation, and you can easily see that the color combination which has been highlighted on the left, you can just see how the colors are consistent and have been used. And then the analysis is very thorough. So for all the questions that were asked, a lot of in-depth analysis has been shown for all of this. But the key part is this way. So if you go there and you see these 10 beans and you click on these, so each of these beans is actually highlighting the question that has been asked. So this is a really innovative use of the bookmarks, and how you actually have not only kept the focus on actually the questions that have been asked, but also on the overall report. So if somebody just wants to go and actually have a look at the questions, they can just go and click on each of those questions. So I think this was brilliantly done, brilliantly conceived, and brilliantly, in fact, put on the report page. So I think this was a very 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 excellent an excellent way of actually showcasing the questions. And if you go to the next page, Avis, the next page, you would see that this is now just dedicated to the pricing, because there were questions that were asked about the pricing. So this is a very detailed kind of an analysis on the pricing. I would say maybe some people would argue that probably this is maybe a lot more details that were actually asked. But still, it's always good to actually give all the insights and small bits of information that you can capture in each of the visualizations that have been captured. Especially the heat map that you see in the middle, where the price range has been divided into different categories, and then you have the color maps of all the 6 types of the roast, the coffee roast. These have been mapped there, and the corresponding colors have been brilliantly matched. So overall, I think it was a very well done. I think it shows the design, the color theme, actually the layout, the selection of the visuals. Everything shows that a lot of effort and a lot of thought process has actually gone into designing this one. So I really like this report. Over to you.
I agree. So from my perspective, the one thing I like the fact that there's actually a color palette kind of already included in the report, and the color palette is functional. Because I've seen color palettes also included in reports, which are just there for design aspect of it, right? I like the fact that it's actually functional right now. That's one really good thing. The storytelling with answering every single question, that's great. And what I like about this is, like Abu already mentioned, right? It actually takes you to the section of the page, changes all the field parameters to answer that specific question, which means there's actually a ton of bookmarks behind this.
Yeah.
And for any one of you who has tried to work with bookmarks, it's not a simple process, but it does allow you to tell the story. So, the one thing though that I think in some way should be reconsidered is I like the fact that these icons are here, but it wasn't intuitive for me to realize that those are actually 2 different pages. That's the one thing that was kind of bugging me a little bit. Maybe because maybe it's just by the way on how we design reports and how I'm used to having navigation. Maybe it's just that. But something to take into account, I didn't click that these were navigational buttons at first. That's just one of the comments from my side. The clear filter buttons works just fine. So for example, if I drill into something, I can get back to the initial view. That's just fine, right? But one thing that I noticed is on this chart, I'm going to keep it on the second level, and that's this one. I get what you're doing here. You're abbreviating to have less characters, but abbreviating to the extent of one character is not great, because if I look at it, so is this January, June, or July? There's logic behind it. I understand it, that it's, in chronological order, but they're all J's. So which one is it? Maybe you made a mistake in the formula, and this is actually January. So that's why there's usually a consensus of having at least those 3 letters. It helps you to understand which month specifically that is, to avoid any unneeded questions. The one thing I can assure you about, right, whenever you do these things, there's just going to be a lot of questions from audience, like, why is it just 1 letter? Try to avoid those questions. Add 3 letters so there's no other questions, and that's all fine. You can switch using the fill parameters, which is great. And you can see this actually affects almost every single visual in the report. So that's kudos to you. The other thing that I noticed here is regarding this visual in specific. So when you're whether you're talking about the price, and this tells me that you are using fill parameters here, right? If you look at the axis, right, it's a 0 to 100. One of the things that breaks this visual kind of, in a sense, is you have a class which is unknown with a lot higher average price than everything else. So one thing that I would definitely do here is maybe create a separate switch which allows you to tell or choose whether you want to include it or you want to exclude it, because you can't really compare the other slices now. Sorry, not slices, but the lines, right? They kind of look like, well, just one massive blob. That's one thing. The other thing, if I start to filter things out, which is one of the first things that I did, you can see that the axis doesn't adjust to it. And the reason for that is because the way that this visual has been set up, and I took a look at it in the back, it has a fixed value range. One thing that I can tell you guys is be very, very careful when you fix your value ranges. You can easily go very wrong with it, because like in this case, now suddenly everything is just down below, right? If I look at this line, well, I think you can agree with me, I can't really tell visually if there's even a difference between these 2 years. It's so impossible to see these differences because everything is downscaled. It's squeezed together. So be careful with these things. Other than that, I like the fact that what Abu already mentioned, right? And I mentioned the palette is functional. You're answering all the questions. The color is actually consistent throughout the report. So if you're focusing on one roast, you know what it is. Last thing from my side would be regarding the map. I would still use clustering here, because when you first open it up, this just looks like a hot mess. Using a clustering capability and showcasing an average for that region and allowing the user to split down once they zoom in would be more beneficial, because then they can see, for example, the average for the region, then zoom in and look at the individual values. Now, if I, for example, want to read any one of these, actually read it, I need to zoom in, make sure that it's positioned correctly. Okay, so I can now see these 2, right? But if you're starting off with the holistic view of everything, well, it's overlapping all around. It's one of those small little things that, again, can be easily fixed. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it would make a lot of impact on the end user experience. Federico, you, any comments?
Oh, no, basically nothing more other than excellent work on the bookmark. It has to be a nightmare, actually, to put it together. So congratulations. And shadows, I think the shadows on the objects in some cases are too pronounced, and for usability, these kind of shadows are not good. Okay, so shadow, you can use it, but try to be a bit settled and lighter instead of darker. Apart from that, it's full of creativity. You know, you got the equation, you got the color palette, you got all the little maps, the bookmark, and I wanted to mention about the map, but the map plus the labels, it is a mess. If you look at it like that, in principle, it is too much. But apart from that, excellent report. We know that Jason is not new in the game. Okay, he knows how to play with it. So congratulations and well done. Excellent report.
We're just giving you more homework, Jason.
Well done, Jason. Well done.
Well done. Congratulations again. So let's go to the next one. So bringing in the next one. So the third report that has gotten into the top 5 belongs to Rashmi Gandhe. So congratulations on that. Let's quickly open it up and let's see what it offers. All right. So first things first, we can see that there are 2 pages. We have the cards. We have different visuals. The one thing, though, that kind of brought my attention to it a little bit more than it probably should have is the fact that, for example, when you start to play around with these, they cross filter everything and so forth, but you can see this is the same issue as we were talking about previously, right? You're essentially talking about the same property in multiple visuals, which ends up with situations like these, where if I try to filter one of them, well, suddenly I'm left with 1 point, which I think you can all agree with me that, well, okay, yeah, I can see the cross point for it, but why? Why do I need it? When I see all of them, sure, I understand what the analysis is for, right? I understand the average and so forth. But when I have just a single point, it's not a great visual representation of what I'm trying to say. Other than that, the word cloud, that's fine again. The same comment would be here. Make sure you exclude any of the words which are unnecessary. Things like and, M symbols, ampersand symbols, or anything like that if it's there. The cross filtering, like I said, that works just fine. That's all good. You have the ability to clear the filters. You have actually a filter panel that you can call out for. I know it's always controversial to kind of go around these things, right? Because there's going to be a part of the audience who's going to tell you always use the built-in filtering panel. There's going to be a part that's going to tell you never use that, use something else. There's no in between. You find what works for your report best and what works for your audience. If you want your users to have sort of a very simple approach to applying filters, a filter panel might be a good approach because then you can have these drop downs, add all of them, and select them. The only thing I would always recommend for drop downs is make sure you actually add a search. And I'll open it up in the background and I'm going to show it to you afterwards. I don't want to waste your time waiting on the Power BI to load and so forth. All right, once we hear, fine, I'll do it quickly. Come on, Power BI. Of course it's going to wait. It's always going to happen when you don't want it to happen, right? Something's going to hang, and I'm going to have a loading screen, and it's even going to... Fine, I'm going to...
Yeah, come on. Power BI.
I broke Power BI. Fine, I'm going to use the Power BI sample very quickly. I'm just going to want to showcase to you what I mean by the search in the slicers. So let's load it in. Let's have even the old slicer. That's fine. Let's add one of the columns that is textual. Let's go into the formatting options and switch it to a drop down. All right, so this is what we currently have. If I open it up, I see a list of countries, for example, but I can't search for a single one. Now, I think every single one of us who has developed reports previously know that for some reason, Power BI decided to hide the search under the ellipsis. Some of you might not know this, and this is the reason why we're showcasing this. It should be in the formatting settings, but it's here under more options. So if you enable this, you actually have a possibility to search for a value in that drop-down slicer, which is very convenient. And if you just type in a letter or something that, it's an exclusive search. So it looks for that letter in all the combinations that it can be possibly showcased to you. So it just eases up the process. If you have 5 of them, sure, don't bother with it. But if you have, for example, like here, roasters, well, you can see there's quite a bit of them, right? And just scrolling down, trying to find the right one, it could take a bit of time. So searches for all of them would be my recommendation. There's an info button, which is great. Tells you how to use the report and everything. You have the ability to switch between the pages. The map. The one thing that I would probably play around with a little bit is the distance for the clusters, just to kind of avoid these sort of situations where you can see the donuts are overlapping. But again, hey, that's just me. And the one thing that I noticed in this page was something that made me think for a second to realize what has been really done here. So on this visual, you have basically a bar chart showcasing the average rating, which is fine. But the one thing that kind of scratched my brain for a little bit, right, was the fact that I was trying to figure out how it's sorted. because it's not sorted based on a roast, which would be logical. It's not sorted based on a rating, because you can see it goes down, well, basically the lowest, then you have something above, then something again below that previous value. It's in alphabetical order, which makes sense from a data perspective, but let's be honest, from an end user perspective, it makes no sense. I'm not going to think about the roast based on the alphabetical order. No, there's either going to be types of roast based on the intensity of the roast, or you're sorting the visual based on the average rating itself. Or either it's going upwards or downwards, whatever it is, but you don't want to create situations where you force the user to try to figure out, okay, how is this thing even sorted, right? It's a small little thing, but these small little things make a lot of impact on your report as a whole. So always take those into consideration. Federico.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. On the same visual, again, yep. the X ACs is not necessary. You go labels in there, and you can get rid of that little X ACs. It doesn't do anything there. Shadows are still very too pronounced for my liking. Again, it has to be a lot thinner and settled. And because you decide to do, you remember last webinar we mentioned about everybody is gonna do a coffee roast or coffee color palette. Yeah, be different because everybody has gone. Yeah, for now, Federico, we are not gonna listen to you. We are gonna have everybody a brown color palette. Okay, that is fine. But in this case, at the top, he includes a picture with coffee grains. And then you have the two bookmark, I think it is, but the navigation, overview, and rating analysis. And he found it very, very difficult to settle these two bookmarks there. There are two kind of splashes or whatever, one with overview, one with rating analysis. There is no design on those because it's difficult to match these two buttons with the background with the coffee grain. Okay, I think it would have been better if you put everything on white, the bookmark, and it's gonna cut in the picture, but it's like, okay, I got some kind of separation because I am sure you have some problem trying to design those buttons and making them look nice, but I probably will struggle to actually make them look any different than they are. So remember that, take that into consideration. What else? That's it. Apart from that, everything seems to be okay. That's me. Little things.
All right, Abu.
Yeah, I have just one observation, and it is on the bar chart that is, right there on the top left, which is showing the average rating for coffee over the period. So if you just have a look at this one, so it's hardly showing anything in terms of the values. Like you have like 93.18, 93.11. So if you know that there's hardly anything, look, nobody is actually going to look at the rating, in the decimal places. So everybody will just, look at the whole number. So probably, something, this space could have been utilized for some other kind, to show some other information. And this information could have been just captured maybe in a text, in text that there is hardly any change in the ratings over the years for coffee. So something like that. So I would feel that, maybe this visual is really, kind of redundant visual, not really showing anything. But other than that, I think you guys have already, even if you go into the drill down and go and zoom into the other stuff, there's hardly anything, which actually conveys anything. But other than that, nice report, nice layout, nice color palette. I really like the icon that actually explains how to actually use that. So this is something which should be there almost for every report, where you feel actually the user should know what to click and what to, how to use the report. So good job.
Avi, go again to the information thingy, please. Information. Yeah. Again, the white is not easy readable with the yellow background and some transparency on the yellow background. Remember that. If I cannot read it, it doesn't do anything for me. Okay? Always think about usability, how easy to read, to understand is your report. That's it.
All right. Yeah. So for this one, which Alba already mentioned, the only other use case for this or approach for this, and you can comment on this, Alba, as well. I would probably guess that if you do want to focus on those slight little changes, then I would adjust the y-axis to, instead of using basically a visible format where you go from 0 to 100 always, you would go just for the min-max values. Exactly. And then you can at least notice the difference in the graph.
Yeah.
Other than that, great, we're going in a straight line. Because like we showcased, right? Even if I have monthly view, you can hardly notice any difference or movement there.
Exactly.
So it feels like it's a chart because I needed a chart, but it doesn't really help me to tell you anything. All right, but other than that, it's a great report. Don't get discouraged by the fact that there are some negative comments. It's fine. Even my reports have negative comments. I think it's the same for Federico and Abu. People are going to find things which could be improved, and that's fine. I actually like to hear that feedback because it helps me to understand how that audience thinks. How can I adapt my report so it's beneficial for them? Because at the end of the day, it's not about you as a report developer, right? You need to listen to your audience. That is the key. They're going to be the ones using the reports. The fact that you know how to use it, great. But what use of it is that if the audience looks at it and is going to be like, okay, so what about it?
Avis, let's go to the next one.
Go ahead. Yep, going on. Adding the next one to the list. There we go. So the next one that has gotten into the top 5 is coming from Rigoberto Garcia. So congratulations, Rigoberto. Opening up the report. And Federico, you want to take the first step?
Sure, I'm not going to get too much into it, but it's clean, it's simple. The color palette is blue, and then he decided to go on green. I don't know why you wanted to change the color. It's okay. I'm not going to go too much into it. What I like is the simplicity of it, the easy color palette, white background, blue color with some gradients on the top for the word roster review. When you zoom on the donut, it follow a monochromatic palette. I like quite a lot the line chart on the right bottom. Nice, you got this double line with the second line. That's probably what it is. That the same line.
It's the number of roasters.
Okay, fantastic. It kind of follow the pattern of the other one in a smaller scale. It makes it look nice. If we go to performance, again, you follow the same idea with the color. You need to explain me why you went for green and no brown is coffee, but you went for green, and I suppose the plan is green. But I'm happy with that. Why you decide to actually put the bend the corner in a stack bar chart? I don't know. It doesn't look nice for me. I would have preferred probably a straight line with the different color would have been fantastic. You can go to summary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the rest is just a table. We probably click on one of the brand, see what happens.
So you choose the columns for the table.
And what is the point of that? If I got the table there, I got the columns there, and start putting or taking off, I don't need that there, no? My view.
It's a different approach. I mean, I'm guessing the main idea about this one is that you can kind of choose what sort of dimension you want to look at.
Okay, I understand that. That is okay then. I understand it. And what I like about Rigoberto is the easiness. It's clean. It's nothing too complex, but at the same time giving me a lot of information. So well done, Rigoberto, and good luck.
Abu, you want to take a go at it as well?
Yeah, again, I would say very clean layout. The layout is very clean, neat, very easy to understand. The if you're looking at the report, it's easy to understand what he's trying to show here. But I think maybe a little bit of text with the titles, if they could have added more clarity, what is actually being showed, and kind of correlates to the overall challenge, what questions you are trying to answer. So that is something that would have added value. And then if you go to the performance page, Avis, we have kind of slightly touched this, that it is you need to be very sure if why you're using a scatter chart. If you are trying to show something on a scatter chart, other than just plotting whatever information is there, then it is important to have some kind of a story that actually shows that this is the bit that I want to capture. So maybe the point, which is the kind of an outlier here, maybe some kind of a story could have been built around that particular brand, which you can see on the very right, that it is a bit different from the rest. So something of that, on that, some kind of text that can add some kind of narrative that adds to the storytelling. So that is something that you need to practice, that you need to actually ask yourself that, okay, why am I putting this visual here? And if I am putting this visual here for a reason, there's no harm putting a subheading or a subtitle explaining a little bit of that. Okay, this is why I put this thing, and this is something that actually builds a story. But other than that, I think it's a nicely designed report and well done. So that's it from my side.
All right. From my side, there was just one main comment, and the one thing I usually try to emphasize on and try to reiterate every single time is make sure that the information that you lay out on a single page communicates with each other, right? You want to make sure that every single visual corresponds to your actions. So what happens in this case, and this is just, maybe it's intentional, maybe unintentional, but for example, if I choose Ethiopia, you can see the timeline, it didn't move whatsoever. So which raises a question, whether these charts are not connected to the timeline whatsoever, which couldn't really be the case because based on a brand, it could adjust. But the other way around, it works, right? Based on a story that the visuals are telling here, my guess is Rigoberto tried to avoid a situation where you choose one particular brand, or at least a region, and then you're left with basically 1 point at one single time, which makes sense. But from an end user perspective, I can tell you straight away that there's somebody going to be coming to you and saying, hey, this chart is broken. It doesn't react to anything. I'm selecting something in the map, selecting something in the donut charts, but there's nothing happening. So careful with these sort of scenarios. If your audience is okay with it, that's fine, but be careful. And the same goes here. Again, if I choose a particular brand, you can see it doesn't affect the chart. Everything else changes, but this one doesn't even move the slightest. So just from an end user's point of view, it's going to be like, I feel something is broken. I don't know what it is, but it feels broken, right? Other than that, there's an info overlay. And for the info overlay, the one thing I would change about this probably is the transparency. And this is something that Federico already mentioned, right? Be very careful of how you place these, because you can see, for example, in a clear area, looks fine. It's you can read it, it's okay. As soon as the placement of the info box is covering anything in the background, even if it's the lines, if it's some part of the text, you can hardly read it properly. And especially think about if you're starting to play around with these visuals, some things move around, you suddenly have a text somewhere. Like here, it's already becoming a little bit more difficult because there's a line straight underneath it. If you play around the charts, you can come across a situation where, for example, these namings, for example here, perfect example, see? The years are coming through the background.
Yeah.
So just adjusting, making sure that whatever you add there is easily readable and understandable. And again, it's quite easy fix. You go to the shape, just adjust the opacity of it or transparency, and that's it. So it's not a game-breaking thing you have to quickly adjust. So that's just fine. As for the summary, I like this actually approach because, yeah, when you, Federico, mentioned that you didn't see the use of it, this is actually something we've done to customers as well, because we have those summary pages where they can navigate through visuals and tell the story, but a table is something that we give to them and say, hey, but if you want to look at something in a simple manner without any visuals or anything, here's a table. These dynamic columns allow you to place them in whatever order or whatever kind of combination you want. So go ahead, go crazy with that. So it's sort of like a solution you give to those who want to play around with this.
Yeah, I was playing with it, and I can actually understand a little bit better. But you decide to go for brand and origin and nothing else, you go brand and origin. It doesn't make any...
Yeah, sure.
There you go.
Also, probably I would disable the control select, but just allow a simple select. Because otherwise you're always selecting one column.
Yeah, you need a multiple select to say brand and price USS. Brand and rating. If you do that, it works. And we need to move because Nguyen is really, really killing us today.
Oh, yeah. We're going to hear about it. All right, guys. So the last report that has gotten into the tab comes from Nguyen. So congratulations. And let's take a quick look at the report. So the one thing I noticed for this report, which again you have to be cautious about, is when you're styling the, for example, in this case, the navigational pages, you have to try to avoid this sort of behavior, right? Yeah. You need to remember that a button has 4 different states that has to be taken into account. There's default, means that that's how it looks when it's just sitting there. There's hover state, there's selected state, so, and there's the disabled state. So a selection is also a state you always need to double check, because basically now I have 3 different views for a single button, which might be confusing to the user. In most of the cases, what you notice, there's basically 2 different states, just to make sure that every single one of those states has a similar kind of experience. So when you click on a button, it may be just a slightly highlighted, for example, but you don't go completely to the opposite side of the force, right? You don't do those things. And you make sure that those buttons are visible even when you hover over it, which in this case isn't really possible because it's a lighter version of both of these things and they kind of disappear on one another. But again, it's a very easy fix. Go to the formatting options, just adjust a few settings and you're done. But what I like about this report is, again, the sort of simplicity of how it's being created, right? There's not too much information being thrown at you straight away. The one thing that I was kind of hoping for when I was looking at it, it made me feel like these titles would tell me the full story when I select something, right? Because it goes drill down regions and countries, and then you're like, okay, so this is going to say Africa? No. Okay. But brings me to the next point, which is careful again with 2 of your visuals. I do understand what you're doing here because those are 2 different dimensions. But again, you have to be careful with this sort of scenarios where you just end up with one single slice on both of these. Now, when there's going to be an auto drill down, this is sort of fixed, but without it, you kind of force the user of the report to, okay, so now I also need to click here, and there's also even one slice here, so not really helping me in any way, shape, or form. As far as the table, I actually like this sort of approach with just a simple table telling me the top 5, so I don't have to worry about going through different visuals or anything. I can still use different regions or anything, or a year selection or something, but that gives me a clear answer to who's in the top 5. That's it. I know that there's going to be a lot of people telling you, you kind of have to get rid of tables. Trust me, you cannot get rid of them. You can try to the best of your ability. You can get rid of them. It's either going to be a details page or a report page tooltip or whatever, but there's going to be a table somewhere in the report, just because people are so used to it. You can't break that stigma that easily. Trust me, we've tried. Not that easy. But yeah, other than that, I think it's simple, it's clean, it tells a good story. You have different slicers, you have the ability to clear the slicers, you can move between the pages to either look at the overview or ratings and reviews, which is just fine. And this is one of the things that I was talking about, right? Just having the average and having a clustering capability on top of it. So when a user opens up the map, it's not overcrowded with information. But if he wants to get closer on a region, he can do that. There's no issue with it whatsoever. But you're not putting too much in his face straight away. Abu, your comments.
Yeah, I think the last point that you mentioned, I think this one is the standout feature of this report, that there is not too much information. There's not an overwhelming feeling once you look at this report. Like there is only the information that needs to be there in the charts that is there. So that is a very important thing, that you don't, that the end user should not be overwhelmed with a lot of information that we saw in some of the other reports earlier. But other than that, I think nice layout. I think nice use of the colors and some of the stuff that you have already kind of mentioned about. Once you're using the buttons, how you need to be careful about all of that in terms of all the four options that are there. And one thing which is a general comment for everyone, not specifically for this one, is that it always helps once you're designing your report to actually show it to a layman, in terms of usability. Like if you have a sibling, if you have a partner, just tell them that, okay, this is something that I've built, what do you understand from this? So you actually learn a lot by just showing it to a layman, because the layman doesn't know what this thing is showing. But if he or she is able to understand what you're trying to show, then that means that you have done something which is good, like the navigation, just the layout, which thing is giving is telling which information. So it is always a good practice to actually show your work to somebody else before you actually finalize it, because you can always get some good feedback from other people. So that was a comment that that is valid for all the reports. But other than that, nicely done, and wish you good luck, Mai, and that's it from my side.
All right, Federico.
Okay, first thing, the incline X labels, the A's. I'm gonna break my neck just trying to read.
Yeah,
that is capital thing in my book. Okay, what can I do if the label is too long or the name of the coffee is too long? Well, you go medium light between bracket and try to explain in medium, and you are start to cutting out so the H is read properly. And sometimes I cannot do nothing. That is the name of the coffee. Okay, so I'm gonna try to look for a space, for room for that chart to be stretched, so you can read the label properly. If you go to Tanzania in the regions,
yeah,
Tanzania.
Oh, Tanzania. Oh, sorry. Got lost there.
Region, no, region. Tanzania button. You there? Oh, you pass it. Up. There.
Yeah, there we go.
There.
I'm just slow. Sorry, guys.
Okay. For I don't know why. For you, but yeah, first you go invalid donut chart here on the second donut chart.
Mm-hmm.
And then here you go the blue and the pink. In my report, I don't know why I go pink, yellow, gray, and baby blue. Okay, kind of carnivalism, okay, of carnival, okay, color palette. And there is a question from Kevin, and he's talking about color palette. Are color palette important for the visual? So yes, if you, for example, have countries and you say the US and you put in red, every time the US pop up, you have to put in red. So you have to follow that pattern. Okay? So yes, it's important on visual, always, as you remember, to use the same color for every single, for that country, in everywhere you put that country. Okay, on visual. I do normally go, and I explain a lot of time, monochromatic. I get one palette and I go from dark to light. He also asked the question, so what happens if I have to edit interaction in a report? Okay, because I don't want to refer to the previous example with the line chart. Today I have a very funny work case, very quickly. A client came back to me, Federico, why I got percentage, okay, 32%, and they are marked as red, okay, where they are pending orders, so they are no order yet, okay, and because they are pending, you have more pending than not pending, it's a false negative. It's sometimes when the number is telling you, it's not giving you a good indication. Okay, so you need to work with the client, with the user to tell, listen, if I do this happen, I can't do it by going to cancel this, or you are not going to see the same information, you have to pay the information. There is a point that you cannot avoid these clashes between visuals, okay, and the best way is to use the interaction, or you need to talk to your client and explain why is that way, okay? And apart from that, I like again, because the color palette in the Power BI thing, we have yellow, green, gray, a variety of color palette that just pop up as they want to, because that's what Power BI is telling the to do. And we have this very fanciful color palette if you carry on drilling down. Apart from that, congratulations, excellent report. I saw some of his work before, and you can see the improvements, and congratulations, well done.
All right, so we gone all through all of the top 5. So I'm guessing it's time for the little drum roll, right? Yeah. And time to announce the winners. So the winner of this challenge is gonna be Jason Gall Martin Tupas. Congratulations,
Jason,
man.
Congratulations, Jason.
You have won the ZoomCharts Mini Challenge for FB20 Analytics Challenge. You had the top submission in this particular group of submissions. And yeah, it's a great report. Like I said, the things I like about it is the fact that the color palette is following throughout the whole report. You're utilizing it as a functional tool, not just something for the users to understand. You're using the bookmarks to tell a story by answering all the individual questions. There's a lot of things that are great about this report. There are a few things that can always be improved upon, but that's what every single report almost has. It doesn't matter if you're a top influencer or if you're starting just out, there's always something you can improve upon. So, congratulations again, man, on having the top report in this particular challenge. And other than that, I thank you so much, everyone who decided to join for today's session. I hope it was interesting and insightful. The most important part is insightful, right? Because you can hear a lot of interesting things. But if none of that was insightful or useful, well, it's at the end of the time, it's a waste of time. So I hope that you get... Hey. Yeah, go.
For me, the winner is everybody that participated. Sometimes you have to pick, because you have to pick a winner. It's a challenge. But if you are in the challenge participating, you are my winner. And if you didn't win this, you are still my winner. So remember, you are a winner by participating, and that's my message to you.
Exactly. Remember, guys, it doesn't matter at the end of the day if you are the top report creator in this particular challenge. This is all about learning, creating new connections, expanding your own network, and just seeing how different reports, how different data could be utilized and showcased. And this is something I can't emphasize enough. You have nowadays so many resources available to you, so many report examples. Don't just try to take one and copy paste it. No, take that information, absorb it, and create your own style that you're doing with your reports, and use these challenges as a playground. Try out different things. The fact that you don't win it doesn't mean that it's a bad report. No, maybe it's just that this particular thing didn't work for this report. That's fine, but you learned something new, you got something useful out of it, which is the most important thing. All right, enough of time wasting on our side. We gone a little bit over the time, but thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's session.
You. See you in the next one.
And I also wanted to say thanks to Abu for joining us today.
Thank you
so much for...
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. See you in the next one. Bye, everyone.